Yes, people's Keisha Prince, and today we're going to talk about how to avoid being double marked. Let's go. So, this is where I'm talking about when I'm saying to players, when you go high in football, the level of tactical discipline just increases 10 times or more. Playing in the League 2, you probably would have scored at least 30 to 40 goals by now, by the simple fact that he's able to isolate and beat players one-for-one very easily. But now, as you know, because he's not playing in League 2, League 1, he's playing in the Premier League, playing in the top 5 football, teams are no longer giving him a second to breathe. They're man marking him from his bedroom. You understand? They're finding his home address and they're man marking Bukayo from when he's going downstairs to eat his breakfast all the way to the car. You understand? They're man marking his brother from the beginning. And most of you are probably experiencing this as wingers in academy football, being double marked because people are doing their homework. Now, there's 3 best outcomes that I give to wingers how to avoid this situation. Number 1 is that your starting position has to change. So what I see Bukayo doing a lot now, because he's been double marked, is that he's starting in between the left back and the centre back, the left centre back, and allowing Odegaard to go and take the position on the outside on the wing. This allows him to then receive the ball, but that's his starting position. And where do you think he's going to receive the ball? Correct. He's going to then pull out to the wing and try and create an isolation, which he's done successfully against Brentford a few times. The reason why he has to do this is because it's then causing the fullback, or sorry, not the fullback, the winger, to say, do I sit in here? And you're communicating to the centre back and say, listen, that's your man. But then tactically, you guys obviously had a discussion that you're going to be sitting on Bukayo as well as the fullback. This is what Newcastle did really well. They didn't let Bukayo receive the ball inside. He was usually on the touchline, and that's why it was a very frustrating game for him. Everton wasn't much so, but there was times when they double marked him, and you saw against Brentford they did that superbly. But I think Newcastle was the best one that we saw. The reason why United didn't do that, because Marcus Rashford is not going to be tracking back and doing that sort of dirty work, because he's more efficient going forward. So Bukayo had a lot more time going forward, and that's why Luke Shaw had a bad game. So number 1 is the starting position where you receive the ball has to change, because you're causing the fullback or whoever's marking you to question whether they need to get out of position. And then what that allows is people like Odegaard, people like Eddie and Nketiah to make blind runs in the back. So more or less, when you get double marked, you then have to use your movement off the ball to create space for others. That's number 1. Number 2 is that you have to mix and match your position where you're starting off. What I love about the old school wingers like Ronaldo and Giggs, when they used to be in the Premier League, is that they used to constantly switch wings. And I believe if you're a winger and you can play in both sides, you should be able to play both sides. If you're seeing that they're double marked you on the right hand side, because they're not double marking Martinelli as much, they're double marking Bukayo, then you just switch wings. Simple. Switching wings causes the concentration of that fullback who had it in his game that I'm going to double mark or man mark you, then change. It then switches it up. Then you call upon somebody else to take on responsibility that was not prepared for. And obviously, if you have success on that side, then keep going back. This is why I love wingers that keep switching. And this is what I advise you to do. If you're having trouble with your guy because they're double marking you, switch wings. And 9 out of 10, if you do go on the other side and they're trying to double mark you there, it's not going to be as tight, because that's not usually their game plan. And it's not probably something that they preempt for you to do. And number 3 is that when you do get on an isolated position where you are 1v1, when you get in double marked, because sometimes when you're going to get double marked, they're going to call somebody else to try and back you up, to try and close you down, to prevent you. You need to be direct in that position. There's times where if you do cut back and play the ball, you're just playing into their hands. The reason why they want you to cut back and stop playing you going forward, because they don't want you to be less decisive going forward. So the third thing which I saw Bukayo do really well against Newcastle when he was double marked is that he used to get the ball and he took man on very quickly. He had to, because there's times where he couldn't turn back, and the worst thing you want is a winger with that much pace and power to run at you with speed and causing you to be backpedaling. So those are the 3 things. Number 1, Starting position change to receive the ball in another position and unlikely cause the positions of the defenders to be questioned. Number 2, switching wings often as possible to cause lack of concentration and concentration to be broken. And number 3, when you're in the position to be 1v1 before the double man marked man comes, be direct and quick as possible. Let me know what you think about this, and let's go.